All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Bob Zagami and John DePietro. It's Wednesday. It's RVing in New England, and we have a tremendous show for you tonight. What's new in your life, John?
Bob, first of all, you made two mistakes. We're only 10 minutes into the show.
What, already? Only
Somebody
two?
might not be watching it live, so 7 o'clock doesn't mean anything. And they might not be watching it on Wednesday night, so that doesn't mean anything. So let's get to the important stuff. Talk about what I've been doing lately.
Right.
We've been RVing. Last weekend, we were in New Hampshire, and starting tomorrow morning or tonight, maybe right after the show. See, Bob, that's the beauty of RVing. We can just get and go. So I think we're going to head for Baja, as my wife would say, Bahaba this weekend, and see what's going on up there. You know what? I haven't been in the RV for a couple of days. I'm getting RV withdrawal because this is the time of the year. It's the time of the year when you really have to get going. But you know what? When I drive up to Maine, I'm going to probably drive through Scarborough, Maine. And what's the significance of Scarborough, Maine, Bob?
Well, actually, the significance is our sponsor tonight is Prime Airstream of Scarborough, Maine, which is the exclusive New England dealer for Airstream motorhomes. Dan Doucette, Tipo, all the guys up there. And they are sponsoring the show this week, and we'll be talking about Airstream a little bit later on and about their dealership. And Andy's going to have some news on Airstream also.
So I've been to that facility as a customer, and I will tell you that is kind of second to none. It gives you kind of the best of both sides because it gives you the Mercedes glamour of the showroom, and it also gives you the Airstream side of the RV part of it, which is another. I was going to say Cadillac. I shouldn't say Cadillac when we're talking about Mercedes.
Yeah.
But
we'll get into that. Let's just real quick. We got Jim Convoy on. Hey, Jim. Glad to see you there. I hope you guys are still busy down there at New England Roof. Scott Nichols, nice to have you back, Scott. Jerry Plant, Jerry, back in Cape Cod, huh? Yeah, I hope you enjoyed your place, your vacation with the grandkids up in Yonderville, up in Maine. Susan Carpenter, 2 weeks in a row, on time, out the gate. Maria Galante Moore, hello, Maria. Leaving Friday, heading to Tennessee, and then working our way to the Keys. Wow. Mark Pope, RV Education 101. Hi, Mark. Yep. And two gals in a Boston brood. Hello from Laurie and Michelle.
Now, Bob, before we bring on our guest, all the experts in TV say you've got to give them a hook and tell them why they're going to stay with you beyond the first hello, how are you stuff. So what we're going to do tonight is we have a nationally recognized TV celebrity. We have a nationally recognized RV expert. And thirdly, he's a good guy. And we're going to talk to him. We're going to find out about his background, how he got into TV, what it's like life at 30 Rock, at the Today Show. And more importantly, and most importantly, we're going to talk about the research he's been doing on a certain brand of RV. All of that tonight on RVing in New England. How's that?
And that's a pretty good introduction. You'd think the guy was important or something.
Impressive. That really was impressive. Right. I'm proud of you, John.
Right.
Andy Pargh, welcome to RVing in New England. We're delighted to have you here.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
And we're going to do all those things we talked about, but first, this is today.
Today on NBC.
So,
I know you just wanted me to say that.
That's about all the time we have for you tonight, folks. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel.
It was a pleasure being here tonight. Drive safely.
And I think your sister just joined, Linda.
Oh, hello, Linda.
Awesome.
Hi, sis. Where's she calling from, Andy?
She's from Colorado.
Colorado, wow.
Colorado.
So she's got, we beat her by a couple hours.
She's about to be a first-time RVer. And that's what got me started on the new Airstream series that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But, I've had two buses. I've had a Prevost and a 1957 flexible Starliner. My sister always thought I was crazy. What do you need motorhomes for? Well, when COVID kicked up, she needed a way to go see her kids and grandkids and have her own bed and bathroom. And all of a sudden, she became my best friend. I had some good information for her. And she has an Airstream Interstate 19 4x4 coming in the very near future.
Yeah. But Andy, Your sister's certainly not the only one that once COVID hit was looking for an alternate way to travel, because as Bob and I put together a video back in, I think, March 15th, right after we got back from the Winnebago winter meetings, saying that this is going to either buy or rent. And sure enough, in the middle of June, the Wall Street Journal has a full-page story saying 2020, the year of the RV.
I've last month I did a 3-part series on Prevost where I interviewed one of the senior guys at Prevost and then a lead inspector, Gil Johnson. And what sparked it was that, even when you look at the high-end motorhomes like that, pre-owned and new, their sales are just off the chart. Try to go buy one today. And then that led me over to doing a series about Airstream, because not only do they have travel trailers, they're touring coaches. That's what they call their Sprinter conversions.
Yeah.
If you want to go in to buy one today, it's 6 to 8 months, depending on the model.
Yeah. Yeah. Andy, I know we're going to talk about your series in a minute, but I had a chance to preview segment 1 yesterday before coming on tonight. And interesting, that term touring coach was very, very interesting, because your guest from Airstream said that it wasn't necessarily a sleeping coach, but a place to get from a way to get from point A to point B in luxury and comfort, and that maybe they would still stay in a hotel. So that's the term touring coach.
They're looking at their demographic. Remember, when you're looking at Airstream, compared to the other brands, as I pointed out, and I believe it's in the next part of the series, which will be released this evening, there's no shortage of Sprinter converters out there. Just about every manufacturer has some kind of Sprinter conversion. Airstream's is the high end, and they attract people who are not necessarily going to use it for camping. One thing he said, he called his touring coaches the Swiss Army knives of Sprinter conversions.
Yeah.
You take something that has 7 to 9 seat belts in it, whether you have a big family or you have guests coming in, or the press of a button, you can turn a couch into a bed, a jackknife style. It just becomes a multi-purpose vehicle. And, it's you have to step up to their Atlas till you get a dedicated bed. I think you're going to see a lot more camping in those. I mean, I don't want the van people to get upset with me, but I think the Atlas is more designed for multiple nights on the road, where the touring coach in this day and age, you have a sofa that can be used as a comfortable bed. You have a bathroom, you have a kitchen, you have everything you need. And in this day and age, even if you're driving by car, to go visit friends or relatives, you still have to stop to go to the restrooms. And that can be one of the more germ-infested places that you'll be on your trip. Having your own head right there, right behind the cockpit is just a really good thing to have.
Bob,
one of the things that impressed me about the Airstream units, and it's incumbent upon salespeople to understand this when they try to compete against them, or when somebody's trying to look at why the difference in price there is. Airstream brings in the Mercedes chassis with every available option on them. Other manufacturers take some options, but I think Airstream is the only one that brings in every available option that they have. They don't cut corners on it at all, and that's very impressive from a manufacturing standpoint.
Especially when you have some options that you really can't easily add later, such as the air ride suspension in the rear. Especially when you get up to 24 footers. If you have passengers in the rear row, you can be porpoising. And air ride really does a good job. Of keeping these things smoother. So, you hit the nail on the head that they do check every box when they order the chassis. And when people say, what's the difference? You can walk through the house and you can see the appliances. You can see the different types of woods or laminates that different manufacturers are using. What are they using for their countertops? Those are things you can look, touch, feel, taste. Yeah. What you can't see is what's underneath. And to me, that's the most important thing. I think in the interview Justin was talking about, they even opt for the side airbags, which is an expensive upgrade. But when you're traveling, having that extra protection is a very good thing.
Yeah, especially on the interstate today with everybody texting. So
Before we get too deep into the weeds, and I cut you off, John, I'll let you catch up there.
I think we're going to ask the same question, which we do a lot.
Let's take let's take a little walk back in time. How'd you get into this business? How'd you get into this technology? Many of us who are older know you from your Today Show. What's that, John?
That's exactly my question. How did you get the Today Show gig? Tell us about the Today Show gig, Andy, how long it lasted, and what you had to do to stand out from the crowd to get that gig.
Well, first off, for those types of things, you typically don't find them. They typically find you. And at that time, I had a newspaper column that was in syndication. I was doing a lot of local and syndicated television, and they were looking for somebody to fill the part just for the Christmas holidays, to do a tabletop show and tell.
Oh.
And of course, I was thrilled at the opportunity to do it. That's like hitting gold. It's a big time thing. And while I was there, I met the executive producer at the time. I'm drawing a blank on what his name was. His grandfather was the one who produced "It's a Wonderful Life." Okay.
Wow.
The movie.
Oh, wow.
And real good guy. And I said, if I can have 2 minutes of your time, I just want to tell you something. Thank you for having me up here. But new products are not just for Christmas anymore. We can theme segments just like I do in my newspaper column where, no matter what week it is, there's something going on. Is it outdoors? Is it indoors? Is it games for the kids? Is it computers? To come up with a good way to help people cut through what they need to know before going shopping. And he came back to me through a producer. He says, we're going to give you 4 shots. You already had your first one, you passed. You're going to do 3 more. We're not going to pay you, but you do 3 different topics. One was hardware, one was kitchen. I don't remember what the other one was. At the end of that, if we decide to put you under contract, we will pay you retroactively. Okay. And the rest was history. I ended up doing pretty much every other Friday. And then when the Saturday show kicked off, I was a regular. I was on every Saturday on that show. So I would typically fly up to New York on Thursdays and fly back on Saturdays.
So Andy, on the weekday shows, did they have you at 8:45 after they're done all the hard news? Yeah,
I would. My hit times on both the shows at that time, it was a different show then than what it is now, was right at 7:45.
Oh,
their hard news went into the second half hour, which right now their hard news doesn't go 15 minutes. I don't even know if they even do hard news anymore, but that's an opinion.
That's another topic.
And my segment,
another show.
Longer there. My segments were 6 to 7 minutes back then. My segment would be the tie-in from news to start getting into features. So at the top of the 8 o'clock hour, you might have books or vacations or things like that they would cover.
Yeah. So when you say tabletop show and tell, they'd roll a table out and there'd be 4 or 5 items on it, and you'd get about 20 seconds on each one to say, this is the new something from Panasonic, or this is from Zenith, right? That type of thing.
I've been told that I kind of modernized the tabletop segment. Before me, the person who really kind of invented that type of thing as entertainment was Stan Ken. I know, Bob, you're probably old enough to remember him. He was a regular on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Right.
He would come on. Then after him, there was a guy from The Price of His Toys. And after that, it was kind of me. So, but the Today Show opened up a lot of doors for me. I've done everything from Conan to Oprah to Suzanne Summers, Chuck Woolery, John and Lisa. Did a lot of shows back in the day.
Now you've done Bob. Now you're doing Bob and John.
Yeah, I tell you, this is the pinnacle of success.
You came full circle, pal.
This is big time.
But hold on one second, Andy. Okay. Hold on one second. You're always the guy that does the questions, and somebody else does the answers.
This is my first time answering questions.
Okay. So why would you want to come on, despite the fact that I'm here and Bob's along for the ride? Why would you want to be on a show like this?
Okay, truth be told, I really don't like doing interviews. I'm fortunate. I get a lot of requests and I bow out. But when you guys came to me, first of all, I watch a broadcast. I don't watch every week. But as I've told you both through emails or through Facebook, I have a lot of respect for what you guys do. When you first started this a couple of years ago, and I watched your first early ones, it was rough around the edges, and you really came up to work out a good format. But what most people who are watching don't understand, and I say this from experience, when you're having to crank out anything that is regularly scheduled, okay, can I say this online? Come hell or high water, you're on the air. Did I just get beeped by the FCC?
We don't have any FCC.
I have a lot of respect for what you're doing. So when you were kind enough to invite me on, I said, let's do it. Let's
do it. Well, we're glad to have
you. For those people that don't know about the Today Show, let's.
Is that Jack Ford introducing you there?
Yeah, that's Jack Ford. That is from, I believe, 1996. That piece has a story. All the segments have a story behind them.
What's it?
There was my first exposure to all
of this. Andy, we're going to play it.
I'll be quiet.
NBC.
Hey, Liner. 1990.
Well, now that spring has arrived, although you might not be able to tell it by the fact that we're shivering out here, you might think about taking a camping trip. And our gadget guru, Andy Pargh, joins us now to tell us how you might want to do that in style. Andy, how you doing?
I tell you, in style, that's an understatement, because boy, do I have some fun things for you today. But let me tell you a little bit about the recreational vehicle market. First of all, it's a strong market. There are more.
Did you hit the pause there?
I did. We're getting a little bit of feedback, so I don't want to distract from the conversation at hand. But that was 19.
Now 24 years later.
Yeah,
and
24 years later.
It's interesting how that segment came about. This was back in the day. I was flying back to New York every week, and I got a call from the RVIA, and I'd never owned an RV. I had never been in an RV. And they said, we want you to do a thing on camping products. And I listened to the pitch. The guy's name was John Pancrady. He passed away a few years ago. One of the best PR people I ever worked with.
Nice guy. Yeah.
If I wanted to go small, medium, and large, what could I do that are easy to set up? Because we're going to break all these units into 30 Rock. I'm going to have to get special permits for it. It's going to be a lot of work. People are going to have to show up on time. They can't be late. And he assured me he could pull it off. And so we came up with starting off with the basic pop-up camper. And we went to a Class B model. I didn't even know what a Class B model was then, all the way up to a Prevost. And the odd thing is about the Prevost, because when I was doing my research then, I said, these motorhomes now have slides in them where you can expand the side. And I think Newmar was the first to have that.
They were.
Can you get that? Newmar wouldn't bring one up. And they got Country Coach out of Oregon.
All the way across the country.
Be on the air for 45 seconds. And guess what? That Country Coach name, even though they're not in business anymore, a lot of people were talking about it that day.
That was a tremendous company, Bob and Ron Lee, and they did some really great things. That Country Coach. And
it was interesting. And we timed it. We did this live on live TV. You could see us inside expanding it. But that was interesting. And we did similar segments on multiple years after that, because once we had the relationship, we'd say, okay, what's new this year? And
well, you know what was interesting, Andy, at that time, and nobody's really done it since, Country Coach was one of the very few, and maybe at that time the only one, that was a conventional motorhome builder, but they also did Prevost conversions.
Mm-hmm.
So they were the only one. So they went the full gamut all the way up to the Prevost conversions.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because I know, Andy, you did an interview with the Liberty people, and they started their business with the old Greyhound buses that already had millions of miles on them. Yeah, and they hollowed them out and built some cabinets. And, is that a Liberty right there? Or
that's my old bus. That's a Marathon. I bought that
Marathon, okay,
from an NFL player. And that's why that 76 paint job was on there. That was his football, his jersey number. I figured, I didn't care about the outside. I was caring about the inside. And I put 20 some odd, maybe 25,000 miles on that in less than 3 years, but that was a marathon conversion. If I was going to buy again, would I get a marathon? Probably not. I like Featherlight. I like Liberty. You know, I like those two brands. And yes, I do have a series online. You can find it at gadgetguru.com. Prevost for newbies. It's about 50 or 60 videos in that series. So.
Yeah, that's
Prevost for newbies.
I like doing newbie series because, you know, when I entered the motorhome business, I knew nothing about it. I still don't know what an inverter is. And I figured the best way for me to learn was to do segments about the different things, you know, of understanding, you know, the differences in chassis and the differences in layouts of floor plans or whatever it might be. And I had a good time with the series. I got to meet a lot of interesting people while I was producing those.
Folks, if you're tuning in, our guest tonight is Andy Pargh, former Today Show correspondent and the gadgetguru.com. And Andy, you've got about 1 million websites with videosbyandy.com and et cetera.
That one I really don't do anything with. I'm surprised that's still open. That's just some old videos that have them in there. So Andy, I really focus on gadgetguru.com.
You know what would be interesting to find out is for people that watch that Prevost for newbies, how many people for their first RV, and I know Bob knows somebody that did this, their first RV was a Prevost. And
I have to tell you something. It's not as strange as you might think. There's still many of us out there. You know, when you're spending that kind of money, you know, buying your last coach first. And on the other hand, if you look at a pre-owned Prevost, take a 5 or 6 year old Prevost, maybe a 7-year-old Prevost, it's going to be priced equivalently to a new high-end Class A motorhome.
Diesel pusher.
Yeah, and you take both of those. You take a 5 to 7 year old Prevost and fast forward another 5 years, and you take that Class A and fast forward 5 years. One of them is not going to be squeaking or leaking. One of them is not going to make you wait months to get service. And I take Prevost service. Once you've owned a Prevost, new, pre-owned, one that's 20 years old or one that's brand new, you get spoiled by their service. I had a friend of mine who had a very, very high-end Class A. I'm talking to him one day. He said, I just made my appointment. I get to go up and get my factory service. If they can get me it in 4 months, woohoo. And I'm thinking, 4 months? I said, I got one a couple weeks ago. I called at 8 a.m. They said, can you be here by 10? And I said, yes. So it spoils you. But remember, they're more accustomed to doing commercial buses. Got to get them up and down. Their techs only work on their own brand. So it's a really, really good thing.
Besides, they have better waiting rooms at the shops that do the Prevost conversions, right?
You know, some of them are very, very nice. But you know, when I went in for service, I never had anything major. Most of the times, I could just stay on the bus.
Oh, stay on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, really, go up and get on the lift. I'm back there. I'm watching TV or doing work or whatever.
You know, in watching your Prevost videos, two things stand out. I've followed that end of the business quite a bit also. The one thing when you did the interview with the Prevost executives, I didn't realize, and I know that they don't depreciate as much, but I thought it was striking when he talked about buying, say, a 20-year-old Prevost, which, first of all, looks like a brand new one. You cannot tell the age of a Prevost bus conversion. It could
maybe sometime the windshield.
It could be It could be 2 years old. It could be 20 years old.
To look for.
But the fact that you can actually get into, one for $100,000 or $200,000, because it just don't. You always think of them as $1 million, $2 million coaches, and they are. And if you go to Newell or a Prevost converter these days, you're going to spend at least $2 million for a brand new one. But buying an old, like you say, buying a pre-owned one, and it's really true that somebody that's going to spend $1.5 million to $2.5 million for a Prevost is going to take care of it. Somebody that buys an RV, a lot of them don't take care of them.
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
Well, let me ask Andy a question because I see Sandy Ellingson just clicked a question on. And Sandy is the executive director of RVWA.
RV Women's Alliance.
Yeah, RV Women's Alliance, okay, which is primarily a networking group for females in the RV business. You know, not necessarily corporate executives, but at every level. And Bob broke the gender barrier, and he's a member as well. And you know, I don't know if he needed a a special entry pad or just what. But Andy, what have you seen as far as, you know, in your RV days? Do you see more women out there on the road behind the wheel?
You know, I these days, I don't think there's a separate. You have the separatization between male and female. It's just everybody's independent now. I still think that it's male dominated, but I think more and more women. And as you'll see in the Airstream video, I forget which part this is in, which of the 4 parts. When you look at their Airstream 19 Interstate, which is their 19 footer, he goes, that is predominantly purchased by women. You know, women, widows. He goes, because it's easy to maneuver, gives you basic features, and, you know, again, you have your own bathroom on wheels.
Mm. And you know what? All you need to do is pull into a couple roadside interstate rest areas and take a look at those bathrooms, and then you say, I'm so glad we have an RV.
And I got to tell you, it's a motivation. I'm shopping at the point, too. I mean, even though I have sold both my buses, and boy, was my timing bad. I sold it 8 months before COVID. I should have kept at least one of them. But I'm looking, okay, you know, do I want to go a Class B? Do I want to get something that's just a no-brainer to take out? It's easy to store. I can pull it into my own driveway. And when I do want to get out for a short bus, knowing that I have a place to sleep, have my own bathroom, have a small galley. You know, I've had the big, large luxury motor coaches before. And it's not that what you can do with those. And it's not how great they drive. It's what you can't do with them. You know, there were a couple state parks I could get in. I don't know if there was one in Georgia, another in Kentucky, but most of them, you know, you couldn't clear the height because of the trees, or they didn't have spaces, you know, long enough for you to get a 45-footer. And then when you have towing a car and everything else, they just didn't have the space. With the smaller ones, and you know, doing this series with Justin Humphreys of Airstream, I've really gotten to take a good strong look at what they're doing with the Sprinter vans, and it's impressive. I remember when I had done 2 previous interviews with Justin at the Super Show, and every year I would go around, just walk through, spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes per unit, going through the touring coaches, and then I would look at other brands. I was impressed with the Airstream's fit and finish. I had no idea at that point there was a big difference to the chassis, and that Airstream was including all the options and not nickel and diming had them on. But I just like their fit and finish. But a lot of that beauty's in the beholder. I just like that yacht, private airplane kind of look inside. You know, when you open up one of those vans, you go, holy smoke, this thing is gorgeous.
Well, you know, the other thing that they did that was very smart, and smarter than me, because I questioned it when they first came out with it, was the Atlas, and it came out at a list price of about $225,000, and we all looked at it and said, "Wow, that's an awful lot of money, and people aren't going to pay it." But they were so far ahead of the curve. It wasn't that the people looking at the smaller motorhomes were going to go up and spend $225,000 or $250,000, but there were so many people out there who either had a Prevost or a bus conversion or a high-end diesel pusher that they spent $400,000 to $800,000 on. And just as you said, they can't get to the big parks. They're getting older. They want something smaller. They came down. Well, if you're running around in an $800,000 diesel pusher, and you could buy an Airstream Atlas at $250,000. And they don't have to discount it much because they're in such demand, and there's a long lead time for these Airstreams. That is a great, I mean, they just hit a home run with that thing. My dealer, our sponsor, which we should probably get to.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
Yeah.
No, it's important because, Andy, I spent most of my time on TV. I know you think, just by looking at me and hearing me, that I spent most of my time on camera, but it was basically in the sales office. So, Bob, we have a sponsor here, and we told them we'd give them a feature spot at the half point of the show, and we are there right now. So why don't you put that slide up, and Bob will get into that. But when we come back from the commercial break, we're going to talk about the softer side of Andy Pargh. But first, this is Airstream on RVing in New England. Bob, let's talk about this guy because we both know them, and they're pretty cool people.
They are one of our strong nerds dealers, and we sincerely appreciate them sponsoring the program tonight. But what's very interesting about Prime Airstream, and a lot of people don't realize this, is they are a Mercedes-Benz dealership, and they are an Airstream dealer. There are only 3, and there will never be any more. There are only 3 Mercedes-Benz dealers in the country who are grandfathered to carry the Airstream product line. And these guys have the exclusive territory for all of New England, but they sell all over the country. I mean, it's not unusual to see a full color page ad in Down East magazine that goes all around the country and pick up the telephone and buy a unit from them. And about 2 years ago, they built a dedicated motorhome service center, not just for themselves, because we said early on, they can warranty and do all the warranty work on the coach and the chassis. And that's very unique because even a lot of dealers work on coaches, but if it's a Ford problem or a new a Freightliner problem, they have to ship it out to that association or that company.
Yep.
And you had an experience that you wanted to talk about with them.
Well, I did because we were up there. Actually, we might have been visiting you that weekend. We were up in Old Orchard Beach, and I noticed a squealing in my brakes. And whenever I accelerated, it got worse. And when I slowed down, so I just pulled into actually another dealership, Seacoast, that night. And because I didn't know Prime was just up the street. And the next morning we towed it up there. And I remember just as we were bringing it onto the tow truck, a stone came flying out from where underneath, where my brakes were. And when we got it to Airstream, they kept it for 2 days and said, "We've done everything. We put the computer in it. We can't find anything wrong." So when I told them about the stone, they said that probably was it. But the beauty of it is they didn't charge me a penny, and they didn't know that I was hooked up with Nerve. I just went in as a customer on a Monday morning at 7 o'clock. They said, "Sir, there's no charge. We didn't do anything except figure out that there's nothing wrong." Drove it home, and I was fine. That's pretty cool.
Yep, and they stock all of the motorhomes, and they at the top of the right-hand side is the Airstream 19 that Andy's sister Linda just purchased, and the GT, and a GL on the Interstate series, and the bottom one is the Atlas B+. And they try to stock them. They try to keep them out front of the building, and I always look back. I go by there a couple of times every week when I'm up here, and sometimes there are just no units there. In fact, there are none now. They're taking orders now on the ones that are coming in, but they still said, "Hey, we're going to sponsor the program. We love Airspring. They're a great dealer. We love to have them in Nerve, but they are up there on Route 1 in Scarborough, Maine."
And they have great snacks in the waiting room.
Always good snacks. Good
real coffee.
Good coffee.
Real coffee. And they have bagels and muffins and croissants and that kind of thing. So it's worth breaking down just to go to the waiting room.
Yeah, it's a great team. Dan Doucette is the general manager. Rob Thibault is the sales manager there, and they got a great team. They got two or three people that are just dedicated to the Airstream motorhomes. But it's a great dealership if you get up to Maine. And like I say, they have the exclusive for New England. So if you're looking for an Airstream motorhome, find your way up to Scarborough, Maine, and see the guys at Prime Airstream.
Okay, so now I said right after we were finished with the commercial, we talk about the softer side of Andy Pargh, and Andy has no idea what I'm talking about right now. But he said,
for me to go home. Oh wait, I am home.
Andy said a few minutes ago that he sold both the buses. He sold the Prevost and the Flexible Flyer. Okay,
Flexible Starliner, Flexible Flyer is
flexible, right? Without an E, right? Without an E. But you said you wanted to do something charitable, and I know that runs deep in your family. Talk about what you did in Nashville or Orlando or both with some of the proceeds of the sale of those buses?
Well, I can't say it was, it was the proceeds of the sale, but I had been planning to start a charitable foundation in Florida. Unfortunately, I came with my family, my sister Linda. If she's still online, she'll attest that we were raised that that we give back to our communities, and that it's an honor to do so. Understanding this, the way I was going to set up was going to be complicated. About that time, I was going through with the buses. I said, I want to focus. It's going to take about a year time. Good time to sell the buses. Let me focus it. Then I can regroup afterwards, and decide if I want to get back into motorhoming, which I probably will. And we started the Pargh Foundation. This is focused on charitable organizations in Central Florida and in Nashville. And we have quite a few programs going on, but when COVID hit, we kind of, I did a pivot, and that's what's good about when you have your own organization, that we started a thank you program where I partnered up with some food trucks and restaurants. And I figured my goal was to say thank you to the people working behind the scenes, the nurses, the people in assisted living centers, retirement homes, community centers, furloughed employees even. And just as a way to say thank you, and we roll the food truck out, no strings attached, here's a free lunch. And fortunately, in my area, when we started doing the hospitals, I think we were the first ones here to do it. Then a whole bunch of other companies came on and said, hey, we're going to do it too. And I was thrilled with that because I can't do the whole thing on my own. But then I did another pivot as things as we started rolling into the new normal, because, no program is designed to go forever. That's when all this, and I don't mean to get political, I'm just going to be honest with you. When all the conversations about defunding the police came up, I pivoted and we started taking food trucks to local police departments, fire departments, EMTs, just to say thank you. And I have to tell you, that was very fulfilling. While I'm taking social distancing seriously, really not going out, I did stop by, when we went by the Orange County Sheriff's Department over by Disney, and just at a distance wave. And, the chief came up and said, we just want to say thank you for saying thank you. We're under a lot of pressure right now. And it's just good to know that we're appreciated by some people. And I said, it's a lot more people than you would think. So
absolutely.
You know what? And I know you do that stuff. You don't look for anything from it. You do it because it's been in your family blood to give back and take care of local organizations.
And you get it right here. It's like that. That's where it counts. You get to sleep really well at night when you have a good day like that.
Yep, exactly. Hey, we've got some questions here, and Sandy Ellingson says, Bob, I don't know if you can read that. I want to know what Andy finds is the most innovative thing going on in the industry right now.
Okay, in the motorhome industry, I think that the buzzword right now is lithium. Everybody wants lithium. I've been doing some research on it. I will have a segment coming up in the near future, probably about 2 or 3 weeks away, focusing on lithium. I do have an interview with the owner of, or the president of, I'm drawing a blank, Volta Systems. A couple of years ago, he was doing Liberty. Now he's expanded to Winnebago and has really gone further. From what I'm understanding, lithium batteries, if you have 2 AGMs and you replace it with 2 lithiums, it's going to give you a factor of 4. You'll get 4 times more running time. You get to bring the power down to a lower level, before it needs to be recharged. The negatives are it doesn't like cold weather, and some people are putting heaters on them. But the main benefit that I see of lithium, other than the run times, because when you think about it, if you have a generator, like I dry camped in the Prevost and I had AGMs on there, I would typically go 2 hours on batteries and then 2 hours on the generator. You could make your own electricity. The big thing about lithium is the weight savings. Motorhomes are a game of fractions of an inch on the inside, and it's a game of weight over your axles.
Ounces as well.
The more weight that you can take out away from the batteries and those other heavy use devices, the more that you have for storage or passengers or whatever. So everything has limits. So I think lithium is the big buzzword right now. It's almost as important as Apple CarPlay. How's that?
Well, how about technology? And you're a technology guru. A lot of the stuff that you did on the Today Show was technology focused. What's your take on the technology going into it and the issues in the sense of customer education and technicians being trained on the sophistication of it? I'm sure the sophistication, even on a 4-year-old Prevost, is way up there. What do you look for in technology?
Well, when you say about the education at level, and I know we're focusing on the RV industry, but whether it's RVs or cars, nothing makes me crazy when you go into a showroom and you've spent a couple of nights watching YouTube videos. That's where people are getting information these days. And you go and talk to a salesperson because you want to talk to an expert and realize you know more about the specific product.
Who should know more.
It's the same in cars. It's the same in motorhomes. That is my pet peeve. So when it comes to new technologies like lithium, I wish I could say I could depend on the dealers to really answer my questions. But as my sister Linda, if she's still on, would tell you, I'm known for asking.
She's still here.
I can make people run out the door with my questions. I can really get annoying on that. But, if there's something, when I buy a product, remember, RVs aren't cheap. I want to have the satisfaction of knowing that the person writing the order knows more about it than I do. There are no questions, out of bounds. And the problem with RV dealers is that they're selling so many different brands of products. They might have 10 different lines, and each one has 20 different products under. How would they understand all those products? In the interview, I like what Justin Humphreys, the VP of Airstream, when he's talking about his 5-rivet program, he has some dealers, and he's getting more and more, over time, that are Airstream only dealers. And I think that's where you have your best shot. When you get somebody specializing in one brand, that's where you're going to have your best shot of trying to get honest information. I don't know anybody that is a Integra only dealer, or anybody that is a Newmar only dealer, or Winnebago only dealer. Well, there might be one up in Iowa, but it's nice to know that you can go into dealerships that are purely focused on a brand, because there's always inline changes. You want them to be up to speed on it. These things are not inexpensive toys.
Well, Andy, we do have Forest RV and Marine up in Tingsboro, Mass. They are a Jayco dealer. They've been a Jayco dealer for 50 years. And when I had my imaging company, it was always try to sell one product line, and they'll tell you they can't do it. They want to have multiplicity, but having one, you know the product better, you know everything about it, and the factory knows you not just as another dealer. So when we called on the product lines that we sold, we got good service because they knew the only thing we worked on was their particular products. Yeah. And there are a few
Andy, you bring up an interesting point when you talk about the knowledge that the dealer should have. I believe, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that Airstream the only motorized Airstream products are on Sprinters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So think of other major manufacturers. They build on Dodges or Rams. They build on Ford Transits, and they build on Sprinters. So you've got that difference there as opposed to Airstream. They know what they're building on. Mm-hmm. They know that the subframe is going to be the same on that. They know that the chassis is going to be able to, carry, from the 2500 to the 3500 on the Mercedes, you're building different products. And Andy, when you did your research on the Airstream during the interviews, you've got to be impressed with the new technology on the Mercedes side of that. With the the one that I had is the new chassis. So it's got the thing to keep you in the middle of the road and all that other stuff. That stuff's getting amazing. I
am a huge fan of semi-autonomous features. I'm going to look forward to the day we have a fully functional autonomous motorhome so that we can be driving and you want to go back and use the facilities or go get a cup of coffee and leave the driver's seat and then go back to it. That's going to be a great way to go. Punch in your destination, sleep.
No, thank you, Mr. Pargh. I want to drive the vehicle. I want no part of autonomous vehicles.
I'll be in the recliner watching TV.
I did that the other day.
But now I forgot where we're going now. I went off on such a tangent there.
The Mercedes, the technology on the Mercedes.
You know, I have a Mercedes vehicle in my garage, and I have to tell you, their adaptive cruise and their lane changing, their lane keeping. I know not all of the Mercedes car features made it to Sprinter, but it's going to be interesting when I have a chance to drive one of the interstates or atlases to see how it did go through. I know that and oddly enough, when you look at the new 2020 and forward Mercedes 3500 chassis, when you look at the radio there, they have the touch screen, you know, the latest Mercedes system. You go walk into a Mercedes dealer and get into a new S-Class Mercedes. Oops, sorry about that. I got excited. You go look at a new S-Class Mercedes. It's still not touchscreen. They're still using a little roller wheel. So in that area, the Sprinter is ahead on it. But I'm a big fan on manufacturer incorporated safety features. When a lot of the RV manufacturers were doing that distance controller, the Mobileye, I didn't like that because that was an add-on to the chassis. I liked it when, for example, Prevost added on their Prevost Aware System adaptive cruise, or when Spartan added on their collision avoidance package or collision mitigation package, I believe I called it. I think those things need to come from the chassis manufacturers and not from converters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let's see what we got here.
Okay, my sister's
Andy, can you see some of those, Andy? Do you want to pick up an answer?
Yeah, my sister's Linda there. She says when she wants to get the correct answer, then I'll do the work and figure it out. Pretty good brother to have. Yeah, but she's a much better cook than I have. It all works out.
Andy, share with us what you had for supper tonight.
He wanted to see. He's doing a Joe Biden test on me to see how my memory is. I had pizza. It was a cauliflower crust pizza.
Okay, from a box.
Yes, from a box. You know, I had this show to do. I didn't want to cook all night.
Andy, I have a problem with that because earlier tonight I was watching a video of you doing a cooking show with a summer salad.
Yes, how do you like that?
So you're like a male version of Julia Child, and yet you buy frozen pizza from the freezer section of a Costco and then burn it.
Wait a minute.
No, you burn this part. And since I'm not
I don't
buy Instacart.
Andy, he does not have any right to criticize you on what you eat, because he probably had his Chef Boyardee lasagna or ravioli, spaghetti, meatballs for dinner tonight. If not, he'll have it for dinner after the show.
I'm going to pop this
He's
can.
the last one that you'll be talking about.
Pop this can and have it right here during the show.
Just RV food. Throw it on the bus and then get ready to go. Now, have you guys had a chance to watch the first part of the Airstream series?
Yes,
I did.
What'd you think? Did you learn? I mean, you guys are already smarter than me on all these topics. What'd you think?
Well, here's what I learned. And we've already said it twice tonight. And it is so true that when Airstream orders the chassis, they're getting the top end. They're not getting the strip chassis. So you're getting the features like the adaptive cruise control and the lane correction program that comes with it. And my guess is that the lower end chassis don't have them.
It's more than that. A lot of times, you know, right now I think it's hard pressed when you get, especially the higher end Class Bs or B pluses. Everybody wants adaptive cruise. You know, do they want lane changing? I think if it's included, they want. But it's the things you don't see. You know, again, the air ride suspension, the additional side airbags. You know, because a lot of these units, you know, if it's not the straight van like the Interstate series, that's fiberglass on there. You want to make sure that you have as much protection on the driver and passenger as possible. You know, there's a lot of newbies out there on the road. You want to be safe.
You're right.
Well,
you're right.
What I picked up from your series, and it's a great interview with Justin, and I'll look forward to the other three. And I think you said you're releasing part 2 at 8:30 tonight.
Part 2, it'll be released at first at youtube.com/The Gadget Guru at 8:30 p.m. That'll be part 2. And about 4 or 5 days later, I'll release part 3. I'm working on that now. And then after that, part 4. The whole series is around an hour. So I tried to break it up in segments.
So our audience gets to see it before everybody else.
What I was impressed with, besides the content, is, and what we're seeing down there, Andy sent me a picture of his home studio. The professional editing that you do. I mean, this is almost Academy Award stuff, but that's your background. You've been in television for many years, but the ability to seamlessly put all of those threads together in the interviews and the question, because there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And you told me one time how many hours it takes you to
this
produce.
Will probably be, when I'm complete, a little bit over 150 hours. I thought it was going to be 100. It's going to be longer than that.
And that's just the editing.
I built everything from the graphics all the way up. I'm a one-man band.
All right. And the other thing that people should know, and I mentioned it, I think, in the promo, unlike a lot of us, and myself included, John, we get demo Winnebagos. They're provided to us. We do reviews. Most of the people in the industry do that. You are unique, and if somebody's out there that does it the way Andy does it, let me know. But you are unique in that you will never, ever do a video or a product review unless you buy the unit or buy the product with your own money. You do not accept loaners. You do not do reviews for people that call you up and say, hey, Andy, I got the greatest thing in the world, and there's a lot of us that will do that. But you buy. Yes, Mr. DePietro?
I'll take the free stuff that he doesn't want.
Let me give you a full clarification on it. Yes, I absolutely buy the products that I review. Have I accepted loaners in the past? Yes, it depends on the product, but those are things that are returned. I don't take product. I don't do well, how do I say it? I'm going to be just blunt. Whether it's the automotive industry, the RV industry, there's one thing that both these industries have in common. There is just too much pay for play in these bloggers and reviewers today.
Sponsored content.
Somebody goes to a show and they spend 5 minutes with a big RV and then they say that that's a review. That's not a review. That's an overview. That's like reading a recipe list or instruction list. That makes me crazy. I know when I go to the industry days at the RVIA, what's good about that? It's legitimate press. It's not crowded because, the next day when that opens up, it is just bumper to bumper people. I mean, just, I don't know how many, 100,000 or more. When you go in the industry day, it's uncrowded. You get to meet the executives. You get to have conversations. The past few years, I've seen just this whole new breed of bloggers going around with their GoPros and saying, oh, I got 500 Twitter followers, give me $2,000 or let me have this thing for a month and I'll put you online. To me, that is just so wrong. And a lot of them have a lot of followers. And I'm just not into the freebie stuff. Now, let's say if I decide to get back into motorhome reviews and somebody sees my series on Airstream, they said, hey, we want you to check this out. Here's a unit for you for 2 weeks. I would take it, but I would disclose it. When I don't take products for free, I don't sit there and, I'm not for sale, in my opinion. I guess that's the best way to say it. How's that for an explanation?
That's a good explanation.
If I'm a microphone or something like that, that's just a reasonable price, I go out and buy them. And then I'll make this. Because the other thing is when you take loaners, you almost feel like you're compelled to do a review. I like to pick and choose because my reviews, as you said with the production, are extremely time consuming. Mm-hmm. I want to pick and choose what I'm doing.
Andy, we've just got a few minutes left, but I heard someone refer to you as a journalist, businessman, and showman, all mixed into one.
Okay, who said that?
I don't know, but I read it. I wrote it down earlier when I was doing my.
Well, I tell you, I don't know how much of a showman I am. I just have fun of what I do. Businessman, well, yeah, I'm fortunate that I try to keep track of what I've done. Journalist, I take a lot of pride in that. My opinions aren't for sale. I call them as I see them.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna put a link up on the right-hand side after the show for that segment on the Today Show, so people can watch the entire thing. Any questions for us Andy? I know it's your time. It's your show.
No, it's just been a pleasure to be with you guys. Again, I have a lot of respect that you guys are cranking out segments, you know, a regular scheduled show week after week. For everybody watching, whether you're watching live or recorded, this is no easy test. It's not just, it's not as easy as they make it seem. I'll put it that way. Okay, we have a question. Oh, thank you. 2 gals and a Boston brew. I always like when 2 gals say that I'm a pleasure. Thank you very much. That doesn't happen too often these days.
That they do. Anybody got any last minute questions for Andy? We'll be signing off there a little bit.
My sister just did a great job on part 1. Can't wait for part 2. Part 2 will be up at 7:56 now at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/the Gadget Guru, or just go to gadgetguru.com and it'll be posted at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And Sandy, it's a pleasure being here. I'm sorry.
You got to meet Sandy.
I would turn the tables on you guys. Thank you for joining me.
Bob, we got to put Andy and Sandy together.
You got it. So refreshing to listen to an honest, independent pitch meeting. Thank you. That's to me, that's what it's all about. It's just, I enjoy what I do. I've been in the new products industry since the 1970s at Texas Instruments. And I really enjoy products. And I really like it when I see manufacturers trying to do the right thing. It's a very tough world out there right now.
Yeah. So, Andy, when you were at Panasonic, were you slightly ahead of your time?
You know, I think I was. You know, I came in there to, I came from Texas Instruments. Panasonic was launching a calculator line. And I said, when I got there, I said, no, you can't go against these guys. Then they got into another business that I was in that department. I was the head of the Southeastern United States. They got into telephone equipment, telephone answering machines back in 1980. And boy, was that a busy business. You know, they were almost out selling VCRs on answering machines.
Yeah, yeah. Any desire at all to go back to the little screen, the TV screen?
I tell you, you see that little studio on the corner? That used to be a pool table in that room. And I got to tell you, I'm getting a lot more use out of that than I ever did the pool table. I enjoy producing my own content. I enjoy not having to get up at 3 a.m. to go to work. I'm in a really good place in my life. And, you know, I'm fortunate that I get to pick and choose my stories. People don't assign. I don't work on deadline pressure. The pressures I put on are self-imposed. But I'm a workaholic. When I'm doing these series, I'll work 8 to 12 hours straight through and take a break just to go use the facilities and come right back.
Is looking out there in the future, Andy, is there a big project that you can give us some insight to, something on the maybe down the road, 6 months or a year?
I'm thinking about doing a weekly webcast at 7 p.m. Wednesdays. You don't think that would come? No, I'm kidding.
So Andy, we're looking for a producer and a technical director, and we'll say the same thing to you that the guy at the Today Show said. We're not going to pay you, but we'll give you 4 cracks at it.
Hey, wait. Sagami told me he was going to send me some Boston lobster if I came on the show. Wait, I can't do that.
Well, there you go.
That would be
Maine lobster. Maine lobster, not lobster.
See, I don't even know that much about it.
Yeah, well, Boston Lobsters was a defunct world team tennis team.
Oh, was it?
That maybe those shirts are. I think those shirts are probably made out of some, probably worth valuable.
You probably have more useless information up here than I do.
I certainly do.
Don Haas says you need a new joke writer, John.
Yeah. Oh, the RVWA is looking for a videographer and editor. Working with a bunch of great gals.
Are you located in Orlando?
No, they're not. I don't know.
These days.
I don't know if you got any members down in Orlando, Sandy. You can do that. Michelle and Laurie say they love your classy look. I assume they mean your jacket and.
Oh, Bob. They were talking about me.
I almost put on a tux for this, but
they were talking about me.
No, they said classy. It couldn't have been you.
Take off.
I was reading sassy here.
Oh, sassy.
Put on a tux for a night. I figured this was a big occasion.
Big occasion, right? All right, look at Andy. It's 8. We try to be really punctual. The people are kind enough to give us an hour of their time every week. We enjoy it. We do ask our guests tonight, tomorrow sometime, maybe go through the comments. If there's something there that we missed, maybe add your own comment to it. I will post the link both for the Airstream series, and we got to get our sponsor before I do that.
Got to get them one more time.
One more time, our sponsor tonight for this week, Prime Airstream, Prime Motorcars in Scarborough, Maine.
Tonight's show, Bob, start over. Andy, help me out here. Tonight's show has been brought to you by Andy. You do it.
Okay, tonight's show has been brought to you by. Hold on, I got to see that. Okay, okay, give me a cue. Count me down.
3, 2, 1.
Tonight's show has been brought to you by Prime Airstream. They're located in okay, so I can't read that small print. In Scarborough, Maine. And their phone number is 833-660-6865. Just tell them that these two guys sent you. They'll hook you up.
And what do they sell, Andy?
As good as you did.
What do they sell?
See, this is why I like producing my own stuff, because I can do it over and over and over. If I do it 20 times, one of those takes might be usable.
All right. They are the exclusive Airstream motorhome dealer in New England for everything the 19, the Interstate, and the Atlas motorhome. Andy Pargh, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. Have to have you back sometime.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right.
The preceding program was not pre-recorded.
No, it isn't. Real live. See you guys next week. Be safe.
See you all.
Thanks,
Andy.